For this video, I thought I should go back to the very beginning of developing pianistic skills, what we typically call technique. I noticed in masterclasses that often the young pianists perform with strain and tension, resulting in a labored or forced execution of difficult parts of a piece. Or they produce a generic, unmusical sound. Therefore, they don't play piano, but struggle piano. They might have artistic ideas of how something should sound, but lack the awareness of how the arm, the wrist and fingers should coordinate well for a rounded, controlled sound and effortless, smooth transitions from various hand positions. Having said this, I want to show you a few basic exercises which help you to become aware of your playing apparatus and the sound you generate. I learned those as a beginner and typically started my practice sessions going through them as a warm-up routine. Now, before you scream, "Oh no, I hate exercises, that's boring," let me tell you that I truly sympathize with you. Most music students don't like exercises to be practiced every day. They want to get them out of the way as quickly as possible in order to get to something they really enjoy playing. Fortunately, I was not forced to go through volumes of piano exercises written by Czerny, Hannon, Kullak and the likes. I used some of them in the distant past, but was soon introduced to pieces written by Bach, Scarlatti, Mozart, Schumann and others, in which the composer presents a specific technical challenge for the hand. When I was a teenager, the so-called etudes by Chopin, Liszt and other composers became a fascinating routine, because these pieces not only can improve the technical skill, but also constitute a viable and interesting repertoire for the stage. So here we go. Here's the first exercise. I call it the jumping thirds. And it goes like that. And so on. You go through the whole keyboard. You jump with your second and fourth finger on a third, like C and E. You jump over 2 octaves. And as you can see, I do a half circle. And while I'm in the key, I feel my fingertip landing, being in the depth of the very key. So you have this feeling of you're heavily in the key, and that creates a certain sound. Listen also to how this sounds. You always land, and it's very relaxed. The arm moves very freely and the wrist is free, and as you are inside the key, you have this dome-shaped hand. So the hand is basically from the elbow to the knuckles here, it's more or less a straight line. There is no restriction, there is no tension, and the only firmness, not even tension, but let's call it firmness you have, is how you rest your arm on those fingers into the keys. So as you land, you feel the gravity that pulls you down, and that's an energy that you can use. You could play this for hours without being tired, because the gravity pulls you right back into the key. And of course, you do the same with the left hand. why do you take the fourth and second finger? Because that's the most balanced way to place your hand onto the key. Everything is balanced, it's symmetrical, and so you get a feeling of gravity and you produce a certain type of sound. It's not percussive, it's not like it's not like you poke the sound, and it's not flimsy, but it's well balanced and somehow sturdy character of sound. So it's an arm exercise, perfectly suitable when it's a cold day and you haven't played the piano yet, and instead of doing some exercises like that to warm up the body and the hand and everything, why don't you just sit down, you have relaxed shoulders, and you do this exercise. It gets your blood going, it opens your ears, and that's your first exercise, the jumping thirds. Now we come to an opposite exercise. And so on. Again, this is not how you play piano, of course. Again, it's a body awareness exercise. As you can see, I play with the first and fifth finger forming a 6, all on the white keys. And I play each time 4 and then go step by step up. And in contrast to the thirds, which we just had, this time you have the feeling, or you should have the feeling, of somebody kicking you from the elbow. Like the elbow snaps forward and the wrist rolls up. So you produce a sound that goes up. So the arm weight this time is not going into the keys, it's actually going off the key. You can imagine the keys are hot like the stove and you hardly want to touch them. And while you're playing the note, forget about the logic that the key has to go down. You lift the sound, you lift it up, and each sound therefore is floating, it's bouncy. And you do the same, of course, with the left hand. And you feel how the elbow snaps forward and the wrist, in slow motion, the wrist rolls forward. So it's a very light sound, a very bouncy sound, and in a certain way you can transfer this type of movement to something that's maybe staccato. To get the feeling that staccato is not a short poke on the key, but it's that you're on the key and you lift the sound. So it's a very different sound character, it's so much lighter. Even if you would play with more energy behind it, with more of a kick, you still have a floating character of sound. So these are the two opposing types of playing actually the keyboard. You either go down into it or you come off the keys and you produce different sounds that way. Now we come to a real finger exercise. When you walk and the hand hangs down, look at the way your hand hangs. Actually, you're not walking with a hand like that or like that. The hand just by nature forms a dome-shaped hand. Because it's hanging down, you're not doing anything with the fingers. So when you bring that up to the keyboard and you place the hand onto the keyboard, you should retain that shape of the hand. And the most logical way, or the most comfortable way to do something, is to play on those keys from E to C and the 3 black notes in the middle. So based on that, you can see the hand is most relaxed. It is totally natural to play something in that way. And in fact, for, I would say, at least 60%, if not more, of a repertoire, real music that you play, you should always try to have a hand on the key that as much as possible retains that type of a shape. Whatever hand you have, whether you have a large, small hand, whether you have long fingers, short fingers, very rounded fingers, fat fingers, slim fingers, whatever, try to basically transfer your hand as it hangs down to the keyboard and have from the knuckles more or less to the elbow a straight line. There used to be a school of piano teachers way back in the old times where they would check with a ruler whether this is straight. This already made the students so afraid of the teacher and doing something wrong. They totally were anxious about it and afraid and got tense. And so that's not what I'm trying to teach you, obviously. So imagine you're very relaxed and now you play the following. So basically you play groups of 2 notes. E, F sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you go to the middle finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Middle finger again. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 4. Fifth. And you finish. And in this exercise, I want you to be a little bit mechanical. That's training your hand, making you aware of finger motion, but without being tense at all. So it's all in the fingers. And the left hand does the same in the opposite way. Now we are going to use a different exercise. And this is, I think, the very first Hennen exercise in the book. And it's notated so that you play in both hands in parallel octaves. I would suggest you practice hands separately. And it goes like this. As you can see, it's a finger exercise. You could play this very generically. But I suggest that besides the evenness of the exercise, the even in the rhythm and the pulse, that you feel it actually as you go up a mountain, but it's not a straight line up like a scale, but it is something that goes like that. And with each wave, you go higher and higher. So one wave is like this. The second wave. And now if you put them together, you have a down wave, a slightly up wave, higher and higher and higher. So as you start, let's say you start with a soft sound. With each wave, it gets a little bit louder. And you arrive on the peak. And now you descend from the peak. can hear that each wave has a little peak. So you have little peaks, and overall you go through the octave, all in right keys, and you can hear that you go up much further. This type of playing of an exercise is not unmusical, because in reality there are many melodies written that incorporate exactly something like that. A melody is not always a straight shot like a scale going up and down, but sometimes a melody goes a little bit up, comes a little bit down, goes up further, goes a little bit down, and so forth. And if you play an exercise like this, it introduces you to use the arm and the fingers in the service of a musical expression, which means you go somewhere, you come back. You go somewhere and you come back, and so forth. And overall, you're going, maybe in this case, you go from piano to forte or mezzo forte, whatever you like to do. And the left hand does the same again. And so forth. So instead of practicing this together, which doesn't teach you too much to train your ear, I suggest always to practice that separately. By the way, the ear is the most important tool to actually improve your piano playing. If you're not listening to what you're doing, you never really can improve. You always will be dependent on somebody else, maybe your teacher or somebody else as a mentor to tell you what's right and what's wrong. But that's not what you need. What you need is your own control. And so if you practice those things separately, you can listen, you can also observe what you're doing and how do I do this, and do I keep a relaxed position, or am I already tense because I want to control it. What you have to learn is to get the control despite maybe the challenge of it, and still being relaxed. And what you can see, what I do is I go with the hand, instead of having the hand in one position, fixed position, as if you would be in a grip. I go along and I follow with the elbow. And later on, when you play something, when you play larger waves, then you start to play with motion that kind of resembles cat movements. Very, very relaxed, very flexible, and never tense. I have prepared a few videos that follow this one, and they can be used as a training tool. You can play along, you can maybe put this on your music rack, on an iPad or iPhone, and there is a metronome click, and there's a different view, so you're reminded of what you could practice using those exercises.